Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. We're going to talk about RTI and MTSS. We're going to go through that and just discuss what each one of those mean, how they impact you and your students, and what you can do to get involved. There is a handout that is available. It looks like this. Please make sure that you pick one up, or if you need one, we can make sure that one is being handed out to you as we go through the process. And we're just going to talk about a few different things, like what does MTSS mean? What does RTI mean? How critical it is for all of us to be involved with your students and with your student's teacher, and how crucial it is for their academic success. So first off, let's start talking about what is MTSS. It is defined as a multi-tier system of support. So when we say that, what does that mean? What that means is that it takes the whole child approach by supporting academic, behavior, mental health, and wellness of all learners. So it's not just when you think about intervention, because I'm sure some of you have heard that term. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're just focusing on the children that may need additional support. This support is designed for every learner in every situation. So we'll talk more about that in just a moment. So let's talk about what MTSS does. So it supports prevention for all students and intervention for students experiencing academic and non-academic difficulties. So that's really important to recognize, is that MTSS is not specifically for an academic deficiency. It also is there to support children that may have a difficulty that is not necessarily academic. And this is based on the IDEA Act, it's Individuals with Disabilities Act, which states that free, appropriate education should be eligible to everyone, to all children with disabilities throughout the nation. So with this act, it developed this additional multi-tier support for all children. Okay, so let's talk about what MTSS considers a disability. It considers autism, hearing impaired, deaf and blind, emotional disability, intellectual disability, learning disabilities, multiple disabilities. So if a child has multiple disabilities, non-categorical early childhood, orthopedic impairment, other health impairments, speech and language impairment, traumatic brain injuries, and visual impairment. So there are, of course, when you look at those different disabilities, there are, of course, different subcategories under each one. So if you ever have a question about, would my child qualify as having a disability, but it's not specifically on this list, then definitely get with your child's teacher. And there's others at the school that we could go through that with you if you do have questions about it. So with MTSS, there are different levels as you go throughout. So the universal tier, this includes every student, like we previously talked about. Every student is important. So there's a universal tier that includes every student to make sure that everyone is getting what they need through their education. Targeted support. This includes evidence-based practices for assisting students that do not respond to basic instruction. So you have a student that may not be performing as well under the universal, just basic instruction, then there are additional steps that we can take under this targeted approach. Intensive level, this includes diagnostics. Intensive evidence-based practices includes individualized instructions, often from a specialist or an interventionist. So if your child needs intensive instruction, then this is definitely something that, of course, you would be notified on throughout that process, throughout the different levels. If anything is identified, you are always notified. Conversations are had with you, and we'll talk about those next steps. Okay. So Why is RTI needed? So RTI is needed because when you look at the statistics across the nation, 40% of all students across the nation read below grade level. This is why uh, response to intervention is crucial to your child's overall academic journey. If a problem is identified, then we can work together to get them back on track and get them performing at grade level, right? Like that's the ultimate goal. So if your student is not reading at grade level, performing at grade level in a certain academic subject, then this is where we can intervene. Like that's the best term to use. We can intervene and give them the additional support that they need to get them where they need to be. So, what does this RTI approach look like? So, it identifies students who are struggling academically. It documents their performance. We determine the adequacy of each student's response to instruction in order to decide an appropriate level of instructional intensity. So, and then it guides the instruction. And then, of course, throughout this process, we monitor their progress. So, if we implement something that we think is going to help your student, then of course there's monitoring throughout that process to make sure that the right intervention has been applied. And then if we see that maybe we're not getting the results that we thought we would, then we'll go back and work with you, others at the school and the team to figure out, okay, what is the next best approach that we can try and see if it's going to help your student. Sometimes with RTI, it's just an accommodation for an instruction that is needed, and we'll talk about that in just a second on the next slide. So, what are some examples of accommodations? So, accommodations can include very simple things that you may not really think of as an accommodation. So, like maybe it's something as simple as a calculator, or maybe the student needs a highlighter so that they can highlight things throughout a test or on an assignment, just so that they can pick out what is the most important thing for them. Maybe it's more time to complete an assignment or take a test. Maybe they need more time to go through all the information. So we can say, okay, you can have 15 more minutes to take a test. Just as an example, sometimes you'll see students that have what we call assisted technology. This can include speak to text, use of tablets as examples. When you see children with this type of technology, just know that there have been, different steps that have taken for that particular child that has been determined that this is what they need so that they can have academic success. It doesn't give them an advantage over another child's learning experience. It doesn't give them an advantage over taking a test or doing an assignment. It's just something for them specifically that they need. Also, know that your child's teacher cannot discuss that with you, that particular child's circumstances. So if you see this, the teacher can address it with you, of course, but we can't go into why this child may have a tablet or why they have speak to text technology. But just know that it's not giving them any kind of unfair advantage. Okay. The goal is always to meet your child where they are and give them the best chance for success. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about why it's important for everyone to be involved with RTI and MTSS. So, as you go throughout this process, you will be notified if your child, if we see that there's additional intervention that needs to be done with your child. You will be notified, you will be contacted. We will go through the process. No one knows your child better than you. So we will work as a team to figure out what is going to be the best course of action for what your child may need. Okay. So as we go throughout this process, just know that we work as a team and that we want you to notify us as well. If you see anything that you have concerns about, anything, any sort of behaviors at home that they display, and you want to know if this is something that they do at school as well, we will always work together as a team. Any concerns that you might have, please always notify your child's teacher, and they can go over and discuss this with you. Okay. It's important that we all work together and that everything that we do as a team. So this is the handout that everyone I hope has. If you don't, please be sure to pick one up. So on this handout, it discusses how to get involved with this process, and if you have any questions, what is the best next step. So, and it just kind of goes through what the multi-tier process is, response to intervention. But also, so just make sure you're reaching out to your child's teacher if you have any questions, if there are any, anything you want to discuss. Please reach out, let them know what concerns you have, what questions you may have, and they will definitely go through the process, discuss it with you. If there's anything identified in the classroom level, then you will always be notified. There will never be a situation that occurs that you are not notified as their guardian regarding if we have a concern, if there are any additional steps we feel like we should take. You know, you are their advocate. We know that. And you are also the person that knows them better than anyone. So there's always going to be things that we're going to need from you. So your involvement is crucial in this process. I just want to, again, thank you all for being here. Your participation and interest in your child's academic journey is very much appreciated. There are some resources and references that we use to put this presentation together. Those are listed here on the next slide. So if you want these websites, want to look some things up on your own, you could definitely go to any of these websites. There are also others available. So if you have additional questions, like always reach out to your child's teacher and let them know, and they will be happy to give you that support and give you any additional information that you may need. Again, thank you so much for being here. And if you have any additional questions, please let us know. Thank you.